Welcome to this episode of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. I'm Wade Mathews, Be Ready Utah manager here at the Utah Division of Emergency Management. Also with me today are Bryan Stinson and Jeff Johnson, both emergency preparedness outreach specialists as well, our local experts here on emergency preparedness. Today we are talking about security and safety and security. Either way you look at it. Today, because in the past episodes, we have talked about earthquake safety with things like drop, cover, and hold on, and keeping a flashlight and a good pair of shoes by your bed at night. We've talked about flood safety, turn around, don't drown, wildfire safety, creating defensible spaces, and
cleaning out your gutters.
Right. Yes. The things around your home to keep the risk down for wildfire danger there. And so today, this safety is about all other things in the home, safety in the home, basically, right?
Surviving.
Okay. All right. And those episodes that I talked about are all available on the Be Ready Utah YouTube channel, as well as this one, and on our social media outlets, Facebook and Twitter. So go check those out there. And in the meantime, safety in the home, keeping ourselves survivable. All right, so what do we want to talk about? Smoke alarms.
Let's talk about smoke detectors. They're very important. The Red Cross has had a huge home fire prevention program going on for the last 2 years, and they're giving away free smoke detectors. And you really ought to have one in every bedroom, but at least one on every floor at minimum. If you have one on every floor, your chances of survival in a fire go way up. I've seen house fires in my previous career, and that made me put 9 smoke detectors in my home. That's because I helped remove people who didn't survive being in their homes. And so I have a lot of smoke detectors. They're very important to your survival. They're very important to waking you up before you become affected by the smoke that's in your house. And so the more the better, but the standard rule is 1 per floor. So if you have 1 floor, 1 smoke detector. If you have 2 smoke detectors. If you have 3 floors, you want to go to that 3rd one. But putting them closer to where you sleep is really, really critical so that you do wake up if there's a smoke issue in your house.
That applies to smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms, both.
Yes.
To increase that survivability rate if those types of things happen. Now, you're saying that's kind of the standard rule, but I don't know, I can't quote it exactly, but it's code now. New homes, isn't that standard?
Yes,
the contractor has to be built into the house, or included in the house.
Well, I know a lot of, we just moved into a new home, new to us, a couple of years ago. One thing we found with our smoke detectors, they're all interconnected, and I think that's becoming pretty standard. So the cool thing about that, one smoke detector goes off, they all go off. So, something happens down in the basement, you don't have to wait for the smoke to get all the way up there.
Yes.
As soon as it goes off, they all go off, so everybody wakes up.
Now, those types of smoke alarms, and we have the standard smoke alarm that's not interconnected. Mm-hmm. Those we want to check batteries on and make sure those are working at least twice a year, spring and fall. The interconnected ones, are they battery operated, or are they running on electric current from the home?
They're battery operated as well. They're interconnected, but they have battery backups. So those need to be rotated every 6 months as well.
Okay, so we talk about the batteries. We want to check those, rotate those twice a year. How often do you just want to check it? How often do you want to go push that button? Because there's a button on there, test the alarms. When should we do that?
Every single month. And one thing that my family does when we do that is sometimes I don't tell everybody that I'm going to test them or test the smoke detectors. And so they know when that goes off, we all do our emergency evacuation plan as well.
You're conducting a drill.
Yep.
Exactly. Okay.
And a lot of people check them, things that cause reminders in your life, and daylight savings time and spring and fall is a good time to check your batteries and make sure the batteries are still
or just change
strong.
them.
And a lot of the new smoke detectors, if you purchase new ones, have 10-year batteries in them. They're not just the 1-year battery anymore. The industry has moved to 10-year batteries. All the detectors in my home I have 2 hardwired and 7 that have 10-year batteries. So,
okay. All right, great. Moving on. So the next thing we want to make sure we have in our home is to be safe for fire extinguishers.
Yes.
Again, 1 on every floor, 1 in the kitchen, 1 in the garage. and having a little bit of training, or at least some knowledge about how to use those, and making sure you've got the right type. There's the ABC, ABCD, just the K for kitchen, various types, making sure that you've got a basic all things combustible type fire extinguisher, right. The ABC.
Mm-hmm. And keeping the one downstairs near your furnace and water heater is a good idea. The one upstairs near the kitchen. Those are both excellent places to put them.
The industry also has started dating fire extinguishers, and they basically have a 12-year lifespan, so to speak. If you're getting the high-quality ones in those 12 years, or at the end of those 12 years, you may want to get them checked, recharged, refilled, make sure everything's still working, or maybe the cheaper ones, you just get a new one.
Right.
And that's the same thing with your smoke detectors and CO2 detectors. 10 years.
10 years lifespan as well.
They should.
And Brian, you were going to say something about getting a new one.
Well, I was going to say something about placement of them. We talked about the rooms, but I would also say that it's important to think about where in the room is this fire going to start. You don't want to have your fire extinguisher right next to the fire, right next to the stove. You want to have it maybe a little bit defensible space away from it, so that if the fire starts, well, I'd like to get to my fire extinguisher, but it's behind the fire. That's not going to work. Make sure that you've got some space between you and where the potential fire might start as to where you're going to store that fire extinguisher.
Exactly. And if you're going to be replacing that, getting a new one, take that old fire extinguisher out in the backyard and just use it once. Try it. Let the family members use that fire extinguisher so they are familiar with it if they ever needed to use it in an emergency, in a panic situation. And there's an acronym we want to use to remind us how to use that properly. P.A.S.S, P-A.S.S. So you want to pull the pin. We should have had a fire extinguisher here. We've got a picture of one on our home hazard hunt brochure available on our website, bereadyutah.gov. But pull the pin. Aim the nozzle. The first S is squeeze the trigger, which is the top part of the fire extinguisher because the handle rests in the palm, and then sweep back and forth at the base of the fire. P-A-S-S, pull, aim, squeeze, sweep.
And that last S is really important in the fact that most people aim at the flames, and you've got to go at the base of the fire.
Exactly.
You've got to put out what's causing the fire, not the flames.
Right. All right, let's move on to a little bit more of our home safety, like escaping a house in a dangerous situation, fire, basically.
Sure.
So what do we need to have there?
Well, I was just talking about when we do our little fire escapes, when we test the battery
smoke
of the
alarm.
Smoke alarm. We do our little escapes, and one thing we try and do is teach everybody, okay, think about 2 escapes in every single room. So like, for example, if we're in the family room, we can either go out the front door or we can go out the back door. 2 escapes from that room. If we're in one of the bedrooms, we could go out the bedroom door, or if in case that's blocked, out a window. But that also brings up another thing. If your bedrooms or any of the rooms are on an upper floor and your second out is through a window, you've got to have a safe way of getting out of that window. So have plans on having fire escape ladders, something like that. There's some quick deploy ones that you just pull a cord and the ladder just comes right out, and that's something that you can use for escaping. But make sure that you've got 2 escapes from every single room.
The fire service calls these exit drills in the home. And they also recommend that if you are going to have to go out through a window, that younger children practice this. You do a drill with them, because pushing a screen out is not as easy sometimes as people think it is. And especially for a younger child, that needs to be practiced, and they make sure that they have that life-saving skill.
Excellent. And one last tip for the home escape type thing is making sure your house number is clearly visible from the street. So the fire, the ambulance, the policeman, they can find those quickly when they're trying to find your house when you've called 911.
I think going along with that, make sure it's visible both day and night. Because, oh yeah, I can see my door, my house number during the daylight, but if it's dark and you don't have any light shining on it, it doesn't do you any good at night.
Okay, excellent.
As a first responder, I'll tell you, really hard to find homes sometimes because people don't mark them correctly. And to have them multiple marked out on the curb, on the front of the house, above the garage doors, and places that are easily accessible can save lives.
All right, and the last thing we're going to talk about that can save lives is child safety in the home. So one of there's hazards now that we're talking about. Curtain cords, blind cords. What do we do with those? Cut them off.
Yeah, a lot of times the old time. In fact, I think it's industry standard now that they don't have cords that have the loop. But the older ones, if you happen to have an older one, make sure you cut that so that it's not a choking hazard.
Okay.
Periodically, I mean, within the last few years, we've heard stories, unfortunately, of young children being killed by those cords.
Other stories we've heard recently in the news are children falling from higher floors on the house, falling out the windows. So you want to make sure you've got some type of a barricade or a way that they can't push out the screen and fall out the windows on upper floors.
Screens, if you're going to open your windows on an upper floor with young children, make sure they're secured. There are moldable things you can buy to do that. Home hardware stores have those. So, that's been on the news 3 times in the last month.
Yes, it has. Window guards, basically. Locks on kitchen cabinets, your cleaning supplies, all those poisonous, toxic liquids and things. You want to keep child-proof locks on those types of things. What else?
Well, there's great internet websites about child-proofing your home. We don't have time today to go over all of those things, but people, if they have young children in the home, should look for child-proofing websites, and that they can read up on this and do those things in the home.
Exactly. In fact, we don't have any more time. So do you have anything else you want to add, Bryan?
Well, I just want to say that as we're keeping our homes safe, there's a good feeling that comes over you that our homes are supposed to be a place of safety. And that's what we want, especially in preparing for an emergency. Things are going to be chaotic if there is an emergency or disaster, so keep our houses as safe as possible beforehand so that if something catastrophic could happen around there, our homes are still relatively safe.
Great. And again, we are ultimately responsible for our own safety. We can't blame anybody else if something happens. We need to take action, do some of these things now. Don't wait for the emergency to start putting these things into place, and be responsible for our own safety and our family's safety. Thank you guys very much. BeReadyUtah.gov. You can find great information on home hazard hunt, making your house safe in various threats. Be Ready Utah PrepCast, hashtag BRU PrepCast is on our social media. Also, again, Be Ready Utah YouTube channel. This is part 1. We're going to have a part 2 talking about security in the next episode. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, hope you enjoyed this episode of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. Like what you're seeing? Have a question about anything related to emergency preparedness? Or do you have a comment about something you've learned as you make a plan or get a kit? We'd love to hear from you. Comment or reply to us on Twitter or Facebook at Be Ready Utah with hashtag BRU PrepCast or in the comments on YouTube. We'll talk about it on one of the next episodes of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. Don't forget to share these videos and your own adventures in preparedness with your friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers, because anytime is a good time to talk about emergency preparedness. See you next time.